Today, we're going to go over most of the activities and resources in Moodle. This video is not to explain how to do them. It's mostly to show you the options so that you can decide which ones you want to learn how to do. Now, to add any activity, you'll have to turn editing on and then add an activity or resource. So we're basically going to go in order. We're going to cover pretty much all of these. If you're not seeing all of these, it's likely because you are under starred instead of all. I just happen to have a lot of mine starred. So if you're not seeing everything, you can click all, or you can always click search. So we're going to start with assignment. An assignment is an activity that allows something to be turned in. This assignment can be turned in one of three ways: online text. When this option is chosen, the student will type their answer directly into Moodle. File submission. When this option is chosen, the student will upload a document to the assignment in Moodle, or neither. If you don't select either of these options, the student will have to manually turn the assignment in during class. The great thing about the assignment is you can also upload a Word document here to give them more information about the assignment. So the student will see that Word document. They will see what you've typed in the description box. And this is where you give them the parameters of the assignment. You can also upload a rubric for the assignment here. And you can even upload a rubric into Moodle so that you can grade using that rubric through Moodle. With an online text assignment, this is what the students will see. And they will click Add Submission, and then they will type directly into Moodle. So they can do things like change the size of the text, make it bold, italicized, underlined, strike through. They can center, they can make it left aligned or right aligned. They can change the text color, they can change the background color. There are lots of things they can do, and they can also add photos and video, and they can record audio or video directly into this box. So this is an online text example. The next type is file submission. When this is chosen, the student will upload a document to the assignment in Moodle, and this is what they'll see. When they go to add submission, they can drag and drop a file there, and that can be done by dragging something from their desktop or from a folder on their computer. And you get to set the maximum number of files they can submit. On this one, it is 20. And when they hit Save Changes, that will allow them to then submit. And you can have it where it automatically submits as soon as they hit save, or they then have to go through a few more pages and hit submit. So make sure that you are aware of those settings so that you can explain to them what they need to do. If you've chosen neither online text or file submission, this is what it's going to look like from the student end. They will get all of the assignment information. They'll see the parameters of the assignment, any documents you've uploaded. They'll see when it's due and how long they have, but there's nowhere to submit the assignment. So this should only be used if you're attempting to create the item in the grade book and you want to have it out in the course so that they can see that it's due. If you just create it in the grade book, they won't see it out here in the class. They'll only see it in the grade book. So this allows you to create something for the grade book that you have the students doing solely in class. So the next thing we'll look at is the attendance activity. The attendance activity allows you to take attendance in Moodle. Now, it's not really going to work very well for this example because there are no students in this class, but I have set up dates that this class meets. I just called it a Monday, Wednesday, 8 a.m. class, but you will set that when you go to add sessions. And then to record the attendance, you'll hit the triangle, and then it will list all of your students, and you can choose whether they're present, late, excused, or absent. And you can also change those if you have other things. And then you can see all of your students. It'll have a list of students there, and what days they were present, late, absent, or excused, and give you a total for each day. And then on this end, it'll give you a total for each student. So you can see at a glance who's attended and when. Another nice thing about this is that you can hide it from the students and make it something that you do solely for yourself, or you can make it visible to students and they can see their attendance record. You can even have it set so that they can record their own attendance. That is entirely up to you in the settings for this particular activity. The other nice thing about this activity is that it is kept up to date with students dropping and enrolling in your course, so you don't have to print rosters each class. This will be up to date with who is in Moodle. And so if a student is not on there and they are in your classroom, that means they've not been put into Moodle yet, and that's something that they need to check on. The next activity is also a commonly used activity, and that is the book. So the book is just an online document with multiple chapters for the students to view. You need to make sure that your students understand that there are multiple pages and not just this one page. This is especially important if they're looking on a smaller screen, because if the screen gets too small, that table of contents disappears and goes below the content instead. So with a book, you can include pictures, videos, audio files, Word documents, links, and even H5P activities. So I have an example of each of those. Now the Word file, this is interesting because instead of linking to a document, it copies exactly what's in that document. So this is the Word file that I uploaded. So as you can see, it did not just take the document and create a link for the students to download. It actually took the content from the document and put it into the book. You can also include images, videos. You can do links to videos. This is just a YouTube video, or you can do videos that you have created and have downloaded on your computer. But we highly recommend uploading those videos to your YouTube and then sharing the YouTube link, because that will make it a lot faster for the students, and it will also take up less room on Moodle. So for audio, you can record audio by clicking the little microphone. And a button will pop up that allows you to start recording. And you're given 3 minutes to record. Students can also do this by clicking the little microphone. And then when you're done, you click stop recording. Give it a second to load, and then hit attach recording. And then students will be able to listen to that recording. You can do the same thing with video by clicking this button. You can also attach an H5P in a book by clicking the H5P and copying and pasting an H5P that you've made elsewhere, such as in your content bank. And we'll go over how to do that in a moment. But it will look something like this. Note the H5Ps used in this way cannot be included in the grade book. This is solely for information for the students. Next activity is chat. The chat is a live chat box that allows you to go online and chat with your students through text. You can publish specific times like this one, which tells the students that the chat will happen in 2 hours and 17 minutes. Or you can have a chat time that repeats daily or weekly. And then when you enter the chat, it's just going to be a text box, and it will show you who's there. And then you can just text back and forth with your students. Next is the checklist. So the checklist is going to allow students to check off what they have done. So for the student, they'll be able to check items and see how far they've gotten. The checklist can be assigned a grade, and they actually get a grade for checking each item off the list. You can include web pages on the checklist, such as read this web page. It's going to look like this little blue square, and it will take them out to a web page. And you can also include due dates on items on the checklist. Typically, you would use a new checklist for each week and give them the due date for everything on the checklist in this particular section. Next is choice. The choice assignment is set up solely to give students a choice on something, such as, would you rather read this book or this book? Or do you think you're ready to move on to the next section? This is what it looks like from the student view. And from the teacher view, it looks roughly the same, except you can see all responses. And so it'll show you who chose each response and how many people have responded. Next is the database. So the database is kind of a mix between a Wikipedia page and a discussion board. There are many ways to use the database activity, but its basic function is to allow you and your students to share content with each other while giving you more control over what your students can and can't post. So on a discussion board, when they post something, it immediately goes up. On the database, you have to approve things before they show up. It also has a list view and a single item view. So I added 2 items to the database to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. So this is the list view. You can just have it show the title on the list view. That's entirely up to you, but I had it show title and picture. You also on the database can provide a template for your students for what you want their post to look like. So in this one, I created a template that has them give the title and artist, and then an image of the work of art, and then they are supposed to provide an analysis. So on the list view, you can't see the analysis, but when you click on the item, it goes to the single view, and you can see the title, the image, and then the analysis. So once you approve those, all students will be able to see that, and they can see all of the entries, and they can even search the entries to find a specific one that they're looking for. So the database can be really useful. And when you go to add entry, it shows you that template. So here's where they enter the title, here's where they enter the photo, and then here's where they enter their analysis. External content allows you to link to websites that are LTI capable. So basically, when you link to a website, some of those websites will have quizzes embedded on that website. And if it is LTI capable and you link to it using the external content, it will send those quiz scores back to Moodle. So this is a list of websites that are LTI capable. This is just something that I Googled, and I can send to anyone who's interested. There are quite a few websites that are LTI capable. So any of these websites, if you link to one of their pages and there's a quiz on that website and the student takes the quiz, it will bring that quiz grade back into Moodle. And you can actually see in Moodle that for that external content, it creates an assignment in the gradebook. Next is feedback. It's basically a survey, but it allows you to create your own questions. This is great for course evaluations because the answers can also be recorded anonymously, where you can't even tell who gave the particular answers. From the student view, go and answer the question and submit. And that's it. Next is files. And this just allows you to upload a document of any kind. It can be a Word document, Excel, a photo, a video. So when you go to attach a file, it allows you to attach any type of file. And when the student clicks on it, it automatically download that file. Folder allows you to upload multiple files to share with your students. And you can do folders inside of your folder and organize them a little bit better, and the student can download the entire folder. A forum is something that you guys are probably familiar with. I chose Q&A to show you because that's the one that you're probably the least familiar with, but we'll discuss each kind. A forum allows you to ask your students a question, and then they can answer in a format where other students will see their answer and can comment on their answer if they so choose, or if you tell them to do so. So the different types of forum we have are a single simple discussion. So the single simple discussion puts everyone on the same thread. So if you are familiar with forums at all, when a student responds to your question, they start a new thread. Well, in single simple discussion, they do not. Their answer or response to your question is basically just a comment. And so everyone can only comment on your one question. Each person posts one discussion is exactly like it sounds. It's just like a regular forum. Each student can create their own thread responding to a question, but they can only create one thread. They can comment on as many threads as they would like, but they can only create one. Standard forum displayed blog-like format is exactly like the standard forum, which is you post a question, the student responds to that question, other students can comment on that, and there's multiple different threads. The only difference is the way that it's displayed. In the one that is the blog-like format, you can see a student's entire response on the main page, and you have to click on that thread in order to see the comments. On the standard forum for general use, you won't actually see their response. You'll just see the title of their response. So it's a much cleaner view, but that's the only difference in those two. Now the Q&A is a little bit different. For this type of forum, the instructor must start a thread before students can post anything. They cannot start their own threads, and then students must respond to that post before they can read other posts on the forum. So this is a question and answer forum. So in order to see other responses, you must first post your answer, and that's because I'm in here as a student. So as you see, if you haven't posted anything as the instructor, the student has no ability to do anything. So you have to go in as the instructor and post the first post. And then the student will be able to see your question and reply. If there is a reply, that they will be able to see that someone did reply. They'll be able to see the name of the person that replied, but they won't be able to see what they actually said. And the purpose of this is so they don't allow other students' posts to dictate their answers. Next is the glossary. So the glossary allows you to add words that you think might be useful for your students in your course. And then add the definition of those words. And the great thing about the glossary is students can also add entries. So if they come up with something that they think that it would be useful for other students to know, they can add those as well. And you can search through the glossary. You can go straight to certain letters of the alphabet to find entries. And it's basically a glossary of terms for your course. Next up are a few of the games. So the first one is Crossword. For Crossword, you'll need to have a glossary because it will pull the words from your glossary. These are the definitions I gave in the glossary, and these are the words. Next is the Cryptex, which also works with the glossary. And when you type in the correct word, it shows you where it is. For Hangman, you can do the glossary, or you can do the short answer questions from your course. Who wants to be a millionaire? It's going to use your multiple choice questions. I only have 2. And one of them is set up as a closed question, which confuses it a little bit. So they won't actually see the question. And because I only have those 2, it just asks those 2 over and over again. For snakes and ladders, you can do glossary or quiz questions. If you do quiz questions, make sure that you have the right types of questions. Closed questions don't really work very well. Multiple choice works great. If you don't have very many questions, like I do not in this class, it may ask you the same question over and over again. But what's happening here is there's a die that's been rolled. This is where I am now. So if I get this correct, I'll move up 1 space. And then Sodoku works with the glossary. And it is a standard Sodoku puzzle. And they can just solve the puzzle if they would like, or if they are able. But if they can answer these questions correctly, they can get hints in these spaces. And if you have a larger glossary, they could presumably get hints in all of the spaces. So now they have those 3 answers and can then continue the puzzle and type in numbers. H5P is fairly in-depth. There are a lot of different types of H5Ps, and you'll notice when you go to add an activity that we have the blue H5P and the black H5P. So when you go to the blue H5P, what that means is that you have to create the content in your content bank, and then you will copy that content to this assignment. When you do a black H5P, that means you're going to create the content in the actual assignment. So if you're doing the blue H5P, you'll need to go to your content bank first. So your content bank is over here in your navigation drawer. And this is where you can create your H5Ps. This allows you to use a single H5P in multiple spots. Either one is fine. If you use the content bank, make sure that you copy your course correctly if you ever copy your course. If you just put items into the sharing cart and share them with another course, it will not share the content in your content bank. You have to copy the entire course to get the content from the content bank. As you can see, there are many different types of H5P that you can do. Far too much to cover in this video, but we will have another video showing you the different options for H5Ps. We do have an interactive book. It's very similar to the book that we showed you previously, except that you can do a lot more H5P interactive content within this book. So you start with a title page, and then this is some of the different types of H5P content that you can have. So this is your table of contents that shows you all the different chapters in the book. You can have just a plain image like this. You can have audio files. This is an image with hotspots, so you can click on the hotspots to get more information about the items in the image. And on these little text box informations, you can have just text, you can have an image, you can have a video, you can have a link out to another website. So you can include videos and questions. More videos, more questions. This is a drag and drop question. So true and false question. More videos, more questions. Obviously, there are other things you can do. Little vocabulary review at the end. And then on the final page, it will show them which questions they have either skipped or missed, so they know that they need to go back and answer that question. Another common type of H5P or interactive content is the interactive video. The interactive video is really good because it stops the students and asks them questions throughout the video, which, as we know, will make them pay more attention. These little dots are the questions. It'll just stop when it gets to the first question. And then if they've been paying attention to the video, they should know the answer to this question. And they keep watching and they answer all of the questions until they get to the end, and they submit this little star. So those are another common type of H5P that are very useful as far as getting students more involved in their online content. Another type of H5P is called the course presentation, and it's very similar to a PowerPoint. You can include questions within it. You can also include images, links, audio, video, and you can even include those interactive videos. So these can be very useful, and they are much more responsive than a lot of PowerPoints in that some PowerPoints have difficulty going to the video, but in these it plays right there in the screen. And it's very easy to add and do that on your end. And then the links also work really well and open up. Don't mess with your PowerPoint. So they are very useful, but you do have to make them within Moodle. You can't actually just copy an existing PowerPoint. You will have to sort of remake it. So that is the definite downside to these. There's also interactive lessons. They're very similar to the lessons that are in the regular part of Moodle, except that they're more interactive. So you can do the interactive videos, you can do course presentations within the lesson, you can do course presentations within the books. All of the H5P kind of stack on top of each other. And I hope to be making a video soon that will show you all of the different types of H5P interactive content so that you have a better idea of ones that you might be interested in learning more about. Next is the journal. It is exactly like an in-class journal. It's really very similar to a forum in that you post a question here where I have this description and then the student responds to that. The difference in this and a forum is that you're the only one who can see the student responses. The label is just that. It's not an activity. It's just a label to make the course look more organized. And so you can change the size and the color and underline and bold to kind of make it stand out more. And this is just to help you organize the content within your course. The lesson is really great because it is responsive. So all of you have probably seen this lesson. It is the Moodle 101 lesson for our students. What's great about lessons is when we have questions in a lesson, you can determine if they get the question right they go to a certain page, and if they get the question wrong, they go to a certain page. Now you can have them just progress forward even if they get it wrong and continue to the next page, but you can also make them go back and review the page that has the answer to that question on it, or you can have them answer another question on that same topic so that they can be sure that they understand the concept before moving on. So that's the great thing about lessons. And the interactive lessons are going to be pretty much exactly the same, except you can include that interactive content like the course presentations and the interactive videos and those types of things within this. The only possible negative of lessons is that they can be very difficult to create. They do take quite a bit of time on your part because you do have to determine what page you want students to see if they miss questions, and possibly create new questions for them to answer if they miss questions, and determine how those branching activities play out and when you want them to come back to the main lesson and all of those types of things. And you're limited to multiple choice questions. You cannot do any of the other fancy types of questions. Next is media collection. This allows you to upload a collection of different types of media. And now you can have an instructor collection, which is what this is, where you post the collection and the students can then go through and see the things that you've posted. You can also have a contributed collection, which you can add media, the students can add media to, but it cannot be graded if you do that type. You can have an assignment collection where a student submits a bunch of media, or you can do a peer-reviewed assignment collection where the student submits items that all students can see, like, and comment on. This is good because it utilizes an outside host to store that media, so the media doesn't take up as much space on Moodle. Page is literally just a page. You create a web page. You can have any type of content that you want on it. You can have text, you can have video, you can have audio, you can have pictures, you can have links to other pages. Anything you want can go on there. It just is a page within Moodle. You can actually have it where when they click on page, it will open here and replace this page, or you can have it open in a new window like the page that I just clicked here. It basically is very similar to a book, except that it is one page instead of multiple chapters. Questionnaire is just like feedback, except that it can be graded. So feedback is just to kind of get some feedback from the students. Questionnaire, you can actually assign a grade to. An example of the questionnaire would be the student agreement form, which is why you can choose to award students points for completing the student agreement form. So that is the questionnaire. Quiz. Now I know most of you are probably familiar with the quizzes, but I don't know if you realize how many different question types that we have. So I've created a quiz that has most of the different question types on it. So you can kind of see all of the different question types. First up, we have multiple choice, which we're all familiar with, true, false, matching. So in matching, you can add extras on this side. You can add extra words for them to choose from. Distractors is what Moodle calls them. A short answer, they have to actually type in the answer correctly. On short answer, it is graded automatically. So make sure with short answer that there is one correct answer. So be careful how you use short answer. Next up is numerical. Numerical is very similar to short answer, except the answer has to be a number. Essay is a little bit different because with essay, you don't define the answer. So if you ever have a short answer question where the answer could be many different things, you probably want to use an essay question. You can make it where this box is a little bit shorter, a little less intimidating for short answer questions, but this does not grade automatically. It requires you to go in and grade the questions. And so if you have a single essay question on a quiz, it's not going to give them the grade for any part of the quiz until you go in and grade that essay question. All or nothing multiple choice requires that they get all of the answers correct. If all 3 of these are correct and they only get 2, they'll miss that question. If you would like them to get partial credit for getting 2 out of the 3 correct, you'll need to use a multiple choice question. And there are some special things that you can set in the settings on that will allow them to get partial credit for that. You can also set it where if they choose the incorrect one, that it will take away some points so that they can't just choose all of them and get the answer correct. The calculated question has them do math, but the interesting thing about this question is I did not type in $5.24 or $2.18. I put in variables and Moodle changes those variables for me. So if we look at the actual build of that question, we'll see that it's Bob has, and then I just called that one original money, and he gave, and I called that one money gave to his daughter. And then I set up that the way to get the answer is subtract money gave from original money. And so then it puts the amounts in there for me, and there will be different amounts with every student who sees that question. Now, calculated multi-choice is asking you to pick what operation you should do. It still picks the numbers. I didn't pick those, it did. I set up the decimals wrong on this one, obviously, because that should be $39.70, not 39.7. So that is something that you have to set up within the question. But basically, instead of asking what the answer is on this one, it's asking how do you get the answer. So that's the difference in calculated and calculated multi-choice. And simple calculated is pretty much the same as calculated. It's just a little bit simpler as far as how to build the question. Drag and drop into text is exactly like it sounds. You drag the correct answer into the box. Moodle has a setting where you can have the same answer go in multiple boxes, but it does not work well. So I highly recommend not doing that. You can also do drag and drop markers where you drag and drop things onto a picture. You can have them drag and drop images onto images. And so then they just drag and drop that way. You can do a drag and drop matching. Embedded answers allows you to put multiple questions in one question, and you can make it worth more points. You can still make it just worth 1 point. But there are different types of questions. You can do multiple choice. You can do multiple choice where it has the more traditional radio buttons, or you can do like I have here with the drop down menu. This one is short answer where they have to type in the answer. There are lots of different things that you can do with embedded answers and close questions. Formulas are really interesting because you can have a multi-part question. So what I have here is just one part, but basically if you have multiple parts, what it will allow you to do is if they miss this first part, but then they get the second part correct based on what they got from the first part, but not correct for the actual correct answer, you can give partial credit for that. So for example, if they did their math a little bit wrong here, but then they did their math correctly on the rest of this, but it still gives them an incorrect answer because they did their math wrong at the beginning, they can still get partial credit for the rest of the answer. So that's a really interesting thing about the formula question. This is gap fill. You can also set it up just like a regular drag and drop, but the thing that makes it different is that you can do a table like this. So you can, the interesting thing about this is, you know, we have two canines here, dog and wolf, and you can put them there, or you can put them there, and it will count it right either way. And if you do two in the same one, it will only count one of them. So that is an interesting question type. Matrix is a new question type that we have where they can just click on the buttons. Ordering requires the students to put things in order, so they just drag these around and put them in the order they're supposed to be. This select missing words is very similar to matching. They're shown all of the options and they have to choose the correct one. And then word select requires them to select specific words in the passage. Now, obviously, they would miss all of these because none of these are the first words. So you can also set it up so they can only click the first words. And that would look more like this. So then they can only click those first words of the sentence, and it takes these other words out of the equation so that they can only click on those words. And then they have to choose which of those words are the correct ones to click. Next is the student folder. It's very similar to the media collection and the instructor folder, except it allows students to submit an entire folder of files, and you can choose whether or not it's visible to all students, and you can choose whether or not you have to approve it before all students can see it. And then it allows you to download all files as zip files. Turnitin Assignment is very similar to assignment, except it allows you to submit the paper through the website turnitin.com, which checks the assignment for plagiarism issues. The instructor can choose whether or not the students are going to see the results of the plagiarism checker, or if the instructor is the only one who can see them. You cannot do online text or the assignment submitted out of class like you can with the regular assignment. That you give them the assignment. You can't attach a document to this one. It has to all be typed out in this part, and then the students submit through this. URL just allows you to link to something else. Now, typically you would not title it URL, you would title it Google or whatever that's going to be. And again, you can make it open in a new window. You can make it open in this window and replace what the student is already looking at. That is entirely up to you in the settings. Wiki is very much like a Wikipedia page in that students can add pages and edit pages and change anything that they want to. And this is a very collaborative type assignment. So we have created the first page, and then students can go in and edit. So from the student view, they can hit edit, and then they can make their own changes. I have found this very useful for signing up for presentation times, paper topics, that sort of thing, because I can create a page where I list all of the paper topics, and then the students can come in and click edit, find their paper topic, and then write their name out beside their paper topic to claim that topic or claim that time, that sort of thing. And finally, the workshop. The workshop allows you to do a peer review process. So the workshop has 4 parts. The initial setup phase is what they'll see until you open the assignment. Submission phase is this phase where students can submit their paper, and then you'll move it over to the assessment phase. To move it to the assessment phase, you have to decide who is going to review what paper. So you can manually assign that, or you can have it done automatically by Moodle. And then the grading evaluation phase, you do have to give the students a rubric to use to grade their peers' papers. And they will see that rubric, and they will be able to answer the questions on that rubric and effectively grade their peers' papers. And then you will be able to see those grades. You can also do a self-review in this and have students then review their own papers. So this can be very useful, especially for classes where students are writing papers. And that is pretty much all of the assignments and activities. If any of these seem interesting to you and you have questions about them and want to know more about how they work and the types of things you can do with them and how to change all of these settings, please feel free to reach out to us in DE by coming by to see us or emailing disted@blackrivertech.edu.